So there was about 55% Sureños in the cell block that I was in. Sureños and their immediate kind of Southern Hispanic-like allies. And there was like 3 white people, and the rest were black people. Okay. And those Bloods and Crips and so on. Some of these guys were from Stockton, Seaside, what have you. And, okay, one of those Sureños looked like this guy who's a gang stalker, right? His name is Danilo. I hate to put names out there, but I think it's important that, I say this stuff, And there's another guy who came to my house one time, because, the ranch hand here has 2 sons, and some, they're mixed up with gangs, and they don't like each other, and one's from the north, one's from the south, or whatever. And so, they came here, and that was a very significant incident. I wouldn't bring it up. I don't like putting this information out there, but it's important. It's part of the story. And so there was like 4 Sureños standing outside, and I remember I'm faded, right? I'm like driving lightweight drunk, I'm driving the Infiniti at the time, dark green Infiniti. I'm driving to the property, right? And I see these guys standing outside. And for whatever reason, and I had weird moments to suggest mind control. It's not seizures or anything like that. It's clearly mind control. I've studied mental health, and I've talked to patients, over many years now. It was clear that there was something funny going on there, some kind of remote brain hacking or something to that effect. And I got it in my head that I should stand next to them, okay? And the memory's kind of fuzzy. This is a long time ago. This is like, over 20 years ago. And so I remember when I'm driving the green car, it's around the same time as the Patrice incident, In fact, it might have even actually been before that, before the Patrice incident. Okay, so before I'm in county. But this guy resembles them. So one of these guys, resembled, the Danilo guy resembled the guy in county who was the shot caller for the Sureños. And basically he got transferred into the cell at one point from the other cell because there was a riot in the cell next door. And he told me a story that, he told the story, like everybody, in a way that was similar to A Time to Kill or something. In fact, he had talked to me, and he wasn't supposed to talk to me, right? And I think that somehow connects it. There's some kind of hidden message, right? Because he's supposed to talk to the black guy who represents the blacks, right? He didn't tell me what to do or anything. He just talks to their rep. So you might see he's a rep, but in Sureño, he's in the Mexican mafia or something, right? So he's like more of a shot caller than just a rep, from what I gather. But I don't know his exact role. But anyway, they were like, you're not supposed to talk to him, right? And this guy, he kind of looked at me at first. He was kind of like, and then he responded anyway. And he said, that some big black guy walked up there and he started fighting, and then everyone started fighting. And he didn't want to say who fought who and why or what have you, right? And so it said something to do with these white guys were locked up there for raping a little black girl or something. So I remember when I heard that, I think Time to Kill had came out before that. I'm like, man, that sounds like fucking bullshit. And I think that they had told him to say that. And then later on, dude, I'm younger, like, I've been in a car accident. I was not, I was pretty crippled at the time. Something that is a recurring theme in my life. They try to cripple me. And I'm standing, in my room, and I'm looking out the window, and I see this guy standing, across the way after that incident occurred. I guess I went back to my room. Maybe it was the next day or something like that occurred. And I remember looking outside and seeing this guy puts his head to the side. He got a wife beater on. It's like he's worked up, right? It's like he's, like he's challenging me. And I'm kind of confused, and I'm like, man, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this guy's crazy, right? That's how you get killed, right? You're on our property, what have you. Okay, I remember, what was this guy thinking, right? And I'm so taken aback by it. Again, there was a mind control the day before, whenever that timeline was. Maybe it was this later on that day. And, the other guys weren't in sight, right? So I guess they had forced their way into the house. Because I remember hearing loud noise like, pow, pow. And there was some girl there or something who was dating one of these guys. So the state had put it into my head that they had forced their way in there and beat these guys up and raped that female. Okay, that's what the state put in my head. Okay, and you got to realize, though it's not my fault, it's not my obligation to help them out, what have you. There's other people in the house that could have heard those noises and noticed it, right? You see what I'm saying? But I was like faded, right? I was like weak and drunk and faded, right? So I'm looking out the window. I'm like, man, I'm skinny. I often spent my money for food on weed. So I was in very bad shape, and had been in a car accident not long before that, maybe a couple years or so. There was a very serious accident, had very serious back problems. So you got to realize how these stories are important. It's not like, oh, why are you telling me this? These stories are fucking important. They have to do with the inner workings of the state and the gang stalking, and they may as well have raped that female because they put it in my head that way, and that would seep into my subconscious, and every once in a while I'd remember that over the course of my life, saying, man, what should I have done, or this, and this, or what happened. And I remember I told my parents or something, and they were like, it's interesting that you remember that, or whatever, right? Also, for whatever reason, yeah, this is part's weird too. They merged that, as we have like a trailer, right? And they merged that with a memory somehow of me being in the trailer. Okay, because what I know for sure, I know for sure. What they kind of tampered with my memory about one way or another, it's something that I'm like, I don't know, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. So there's memories I have for sure, like when I used to live in Saratoga, or dating this person or that person. And then there's these memories that are fuzzy. Okay, so there's this memory that this guy knocks on the door and comes into the trailer, right, that I'm in. And he says, don't wake up, or something like that. Or someone else says, I'm not on your side, but trust me, when he comes, don't wake up, or something. And then I keep, going through the motions of, I pretend that like I'm asleep. And they, and then after I say, okay, he's gone. And like nothing significant occurred. Now how, when I was sleeping in my room, I wasn't also sleeping in the trailer, right? You see what I'm saying? Because I was playing music in my room or something. Okay. And I would be playing music in that never, so it couldn't have occurred that way. Okay, so they definitely implanted memories and tampered with my memory. And there's people out there who would pretend they don't have the power to do it. Look, the burden of proof is on you to show that they don't have the power to do that. The burden of proof isn't on me to prove that I'm sane. The burden of proof is on you. There's 23 witnesses to the psychological operation campaign. So I reserve my right to have the benefit of the doubt where those people are honorable enough and sane enough to admit that that's the logical assumption and sound conclusion here. Anyway. So let's go on to point number 23. And again, you can imagine that, at that point, let me touch on this again briefly. It fed into, I started to resent Serenios when that wasn't quite the case. When I was younger, I had no idea that there was any racial stuff going on in LA. Even after seeing the movie Friday, went in one ear out the other. I wasn't like, hey, all Serenios don't like black people. And I'm sure lots of them have no problem with black people. You know what I'm saying? But at that point, I start, it starts seeping into my subconscious, and I start resenting them. But I don't really, I don't have like a bitter hatred for them at that point, or after that. Right now, however the righteous man should feel about any type of person is how I feel about it. Okay? I have trouble feeling emotions because of the brain hacking, so I default with the logic. You see what I'm saying? I feel a little something, in terms of emotions, but that's the situation. So you see how this story is important. I hate to put I apologize if anyone feels that I've unfairly put them on blast or whatever, but this story is fucking important. Okay. All right, so there was also, point number 23. Again, I'll just talk on it briefly. So I seen these Serenios when I was with Devo at the wharf, okay? Because he was, me and him, we used to go to a lot of places together. Me and Devo, me and AZ, me and Obi, me and Che, okay? And there's some other dudes that we Antonio, shout out to Antonio from the West Side, and so on and so forth. There's dudes that we used to, we were thick as thieves, as the story goes, but I'm not a thief. I'm, okay. So, I'm at the wharf with them, and there's some Serenios who were working at the establishment there, and they see me, and some of them start saying, hey, where the weeds? It's just the sign for the weed, right? He's trying to be friendly or whatever. And there's another one you can tell he wants to stick to the rules and doesn't like strangers, and maybe doesn't like black people, I don't know. But, at some point they, have a memory of them looking at me like, kind of like Uncle Fester, this kind of a cult, a bitter Uncle Fester, like this dark way about him, right? One thing that comes to mind is the movie Training Day. That's the gang from Training Day that, that Denzel Washington sets up the protagonist with to die, okay? And they're in the bathtub and they got the shotgun and so on. Those are Southsiders, right? That's who they're representing, right? So it was similar to that, but they don't look like that guy. But that similar kind of darkness around him that you see in various groups, it's like an occult darkness. And so he's looking at me, and eventually they're just kind of like, whatever. We smoke with them, we keep it pushing, right? So that's that. There's nothing more to that story, right? So it's true. All this stuff's true. Where you see that it wasn't like this Friday after next relationship. In fact, when I was in county, I forgot to bring that up. One of the Serenos who had like a mustache, so on and so forth, he talked to me and he showed me pictures of his girlfriend and asked me, his wife or something, asked me, hey, do you have any pictures? I said, I don't have any pictures. And he said, and he was very cool with me, very cordial, very, very, friendly. So, there wasn't this kind of animosity like you might think that there was. And some of my videos in the past might confuse that, but that it was never like that. You see what I'm saying? And then I confused that because of the hatred that was being inspired by the PSYOP, was being inspired by the gang wars in prison and so on and so forth, and the events in the news, So, and of course, I've seen Serenos where we started talking shit to each other on the internet, and then we were cool after that, what I'm saying? That was the general rule of thumb of any contact I had with Serenos on the internet. If they were, I saw them in the comments, right? There was this one video, was put out there by some instigator. It said the N-word versus Mexicans. So the state kind of impresses upon you to hate each other. Maybe they directly order people at times, informants, I don't know. And then they put out these videos, right? And that video, I remember thinking, hey, they let this video get like over 1 million views. But they're suppressing my videos when that video in the title had the N-word in it. But they're taking down my videos for petty ass shit. You see what I'm saying? You would think that I magically made it up or something, but that's what it was, Okay. So there's another time I seen this Sereno driving in Santa Cruz, okay, and he was in a green Honda, and he had a certain look about him, and he had a little ponytail, and it stood with me, right? When that happens, it tends to be connected to the PSYOP. That's why I bring it up, I bring up any Sereno memory I have, because I don't remember everything, and the stuff was made to kind of stay with me, to kind of play a jigsaw puzzle game. The Riddler, the Jigsaw, the Joker, they all like playing games with people, and the elite, they're a bunch of nerds and stuff like that, scary movie types who like to mimic the Jigsaw, the Riddler, and the Joker. And I'm sure you've seen people who describe themselves as Harley Quinn on the internet or whatever, and I'm sure you see that I'm right. Okay. And of course, there's the biker connection, Harley, right? Harley Quinn. Okay, and then the Aryan Brotherhood, mixed between Irish bikers, originally the original members, the Satanists, and the neo Nazis. That and that is how they were founded, right? As the story goes. Okay, point 25. Okay, so when I was being taken and detained and taken to the police station in Santa Cruz, this, it came on the radio that this guy who this police officer was familiar with was caught with a screwdriver, and he's on probation. And the guy, you would think they wouldn't do it this way. They said, keep him there. This guy wanted to drive me like another 15 minutes to the police station or whatever, drop me off, and then go to wherever they had detained this dude so he could talk to him. So probably like a half an hour. Can you imagine? Instead of being booked right there, you're waiting for this cop who knows you already so he can rub it in or make a deal with you or whatever the fuck that was about. You see what I'm saying? He's like, keep him there. Yeah. Wait for me, is what he said. You see what I'm saying? And that was going to be like 30 minutes or so. Ridiculous, right? Okay. Okay, so then there was this time, where there was one Sereno, he was talking to me willingly. He was from LA, and he said that the Santa Cruz County Jail is really nice, and he wants to stay there, and he's been in the LA County, and it sucks a whole lot, and so on and so forth. And he kind of had a very kind of bitter, kind of, trying too hard to be gangster, maybe kind of way about him, right? And he was like an older guy, maybe he was like 30 or so, but he was really war-torn, worn out by the streets looking, maybe drug addiction. That stood with me too. Okay, I went over that one. Okay, I went over 27. It was about the Danilo thing. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, when I was in Gilroy, right? So this one guy who claimed to be targeted, and again, I hate to put people on blast. He was said he was from Texas, said he'd been to Pelican Bay. I'm pretty sure his story was not true partially. And so we're in Gilroy, and some guy who looks like he's a white guy who's not really a Norteño, but he looks similar to them. He's like a gigolo or something. And so I was under lightweight mind control or whatever, and he's like staring at him with me, right? And so he's pretending like he's on my side because of the gang stalking thing, and that we're gonna make these kind of strong connections and whoop de whoop de whoop. You know what I'm saying? And so fucking I'm like, okay, the whole world's against me anyway. Da 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 da. I mean, I was feeling suggestible. So I stare at the dude with him, and the dude kind of makes a mocker face, and that's that. And that has more significance than you think, because these things connect together again like a puzzle. Okay? That has something to do with me standing by the guy who looks like him, okay, who was by the farmhands on place. And again, we pay this guy well, give him free, he stays there for free, and so on and so forth at the time. That guy's gone now, and so on and so forth. But that was the case at the time. Okay. Where are we here? Okay, so I forgot this one incident in county, but it's actually the next point 29. Okay. So when I first got in there, when I first went to the Santa Cruz County Jail, they eventually they tricked me into signing something, right? They said, hey, and I was under heavy mind control in the interrogation room, some of the worst mind control of my whole life. They had me acting up, very upset, very thrown off. I was way thrown off. It didn't make sense. I was way thrown off in the police cruiser, and I was thrown off in the interrogation room. And as I was getting booked in the county, that whole time I was thrown way the fuck off. You see what I'm saying? And when I came out, it was like, I lost my mind or something. I could totally feel the drugs in my system. I could feel disoriented. I totally knew I had been covertly drugged, better than someone who's been roofied or something. It was clear to me. And so I'm walking through the, there's basically a bunch of cells where at that time, I don't know what it is now, where you can't see, they can't see out, but you can see in. And they do things. They could see silhouettes or something, and they smile at the silhouettes as if they see them to fuck with their heads, is what the guards had told me, right? And the guards were just regular police officers, if I remember correctly. They were maybe sheriffs or Santa Cruz County, Santa Cruz Police Department people in that part. They weren't COs or something. They were police officers. And so as I'm walking down this thing with the guys, the first one I see is a bunch of bigger white guys. So you might call that a level 3 yard. It was more significant, than Elmwood. Elmwood's probably level 2, if I remember correctly. Elmwood's like this jail they have in San Jose, the San Jose airfield. I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly where it is. Somewhere by San Jose or in San Jose. I've never been there. And then they have San Jose County Jail or whatever as well. Okay, so it's a level 2 if I'm not mistaken. But in that first place that I passed was like a level 3, because it had to do with the type of inmates that were there. Not that Santa Cruz County Jail is a level 3 facility or whatever. It's like a holding facility, a transfer facility, or whatever, right? But that particular yard was like, when I seen the San Quentin thing on MSNBC or whatever, with these white guys who are describing themselves as Peckerwoods, okay, which is the name of the prison gang. These guys were bigger and meaner than those guys. So if that's a level 3 yard, then that was definitely a level 3 yard. And in some ways, it was approaching a level 4 yard. It might very well be a level 4 yard. I don't know how they rate it or whatever, because it had to do with the dangerous inmates that were there. These guys were serious criminals, okay? And that took me, by surprise. I'm like, whoa, like why on earth do they have, I'm expecting to see people there for DUIs, beating their girlfriend, unpaid parking tickets or whatever the fuck. I wasn't expecting to see, penitentiary looking people, right? So as I walk into there, you pass a few more ones or whatever, we go to the one that I'm in. As soon as I go in there, boom, this one Crip guy, he's staring at me. The whole fucking cell block is staring at me, and he's staring at me harder than the rest of them. I guess he doesn't know who I am, what I claim, this, and this. And later on I found out he was a Crip, Seaside. He was on his way to the penitentiary for 4 years. He was on parole and got caught with a gun and cocaine and marijuana or something like this. Okay. And so, they had explained to me later that, hey, that guy was, he had to be that way because he's going to go to the pin, and that he's got to be that way. I'm thinking, hey, if you stare everyone in the pin, you're going to get fucking shanked like the first day, you know. But especially the way he did in a very confrontational, aggressive way. I remember thinking, man, that's some bitch shit, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, he knew that he had the upper hand. So I'm like, how are you going to act all bad? You know what I'm saying? So I don't respect that kind of thing, kind of trying to act like you're the man and trying to leverage. You see what I'm saying? And so they said that, you know, also that some other gang members had went in there and they hit up some dude, and they said, where you from? And, you know, figured out the guy was an older blood or something like that. And he had poured hot water on him, okay? And they removed the hot water after that, and they had some incident. And they said, you know, that they were going to double down on the pecking order and what have you because of that incident, right? And I guess the guards and the other gangs the other groups probably give them a hard time about that as well, because, you know, it affects the whole kind of unit, right? Okay. And I forgot when I was there in the holding tank, I seen some dude who sold me weed on the streets. He was a white guy, and he was like, you know, came off like a white supremacist, what have you. So when I tried to talk to him in the thing, the other guys were talking to me. He said, I'm not supposed to talk to you. And I said, why? And he was kind of like taking you know, I think it was a double take. On the one hand, he's like, I just tell you I'm not supposed to talk to you. On the other hand, he knew, you know, I was asking him a question. I didn't know what the fuck, you know, I'm like, what, did that police officer there tell you not to, or what? He said, it's the rules in the jail system. So for whatever reason, I'm new to this, you know, I still, you know, my head, I still think, what the fuck is that about? That the rules in the county system, not the penitentiary, mind you, are such that in the holding tank, mind you, when you first get there, that you can't talk to the other race, right? That's, you know, that's new to me, right? You know, when I hear people telling stories, they never bring that up. If anything, the other way around. Okay. Now I'm going off, you know, I'm going to have to make another part to this. So let me just wrap this up, and we'll shoot through the next one in the next part. So there's this other white guy there who was a heroin addict, and he had said to me, you know, yes, I don't agree with the rules either. If you want, me and you can stand for the rules. I think he was actually there. I don't remember him being right behind me. Maybe he came later when I was taken to the cell, but I think he came right after that or something. And so when he comes, you know, there's rooms and there's 2 stories, and then there's bunks on the main area, right? And so he's like, okay, let's bunk together. And everyone's in the black guy saying, you can't do that. Okay. And so we're going to shake off the rules initially, but I had a moment where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to follow these rules. And he's like, okay, because we had agreed, and he made it, he emphasized it, right? So I felt kind of bad, but that was that, right? That we were going to have each other's back, and I guess take on whoever we're going to take on because of it. You know, that was interesting, and it's one of these jigsaw puzzle pieces, because that goes back to the pinching. To make a long story short, when I get there, the first time we start to eat, right, when there's a meal time, and I get my tray, whatever. Okay, there's 2 tables for the blacks, if I remember correctly, 3 for Hispanics, right? And the white guys just eating their cells or something. Okay. For whatever, you know, I remember I'm in the bunk bed, what have you. For whatever reason, I didn't think, hey, sit on the bunk bed or something. For whatever reason, I'm like, hey, I got to sit somewhere. Okay. And there's some open spaces on the Sereno's place. So when I first sit there, some of them are like confused. Some of them moved away, some of them didn't. And they're like, okay, so the blacks want this table too now? Okay. And eventually the dude outside, I guess if you press a light, I guess if you press a button, we can see in the fucking thing. Because I remember something occurs, some alarm goes off, he's pointing to the black table, and I take like offense to that. I'm like, look, you're a motherfucking cop. You're not going to tell me shit, okay? You know what I'm saying? I'm a Crip. I'm in jail. You're not telling me shit. And fucking no one else basically is not telling me shit. But at the same time, there's some kind of rules in the unit, and I don't want to fucking, you know, be, you know, at odds with everyone over those relatively minor issues, you might say, okay? So fucking, I'm like, no, I'm not moving. What the fuck you mean? And so more and more Serenos, they start sitting next to me, and they start pinching me, right? And some of these black guys explained, said, you know, that they were trying to help you out. And I'm fucking confused about that, but, you know, you got to keep in mind the nature of the mind control and the confusion and the trap that was set by people who worship the devil. And a lot of these people, everyone in that prison, I'd say, or excuse me, that jail, saw themselves as just doing their job or playing their part in some organization. And New World Order controls like all organizations, you know, but they don't control me. And that's a key part of this.